Welcome, residents, to the Dr. DC podcast. My name is producer Richard, and across from me is the doctor himself.
We're gonna fug up some rice.
Burnt rice.
Stuck in my head forever.
Yep, no, it's the worst. I literally can't listen to that song anymore. Fucking DC Universe Infinite keeps emailing me. Jesus.
Aren't we popular?
Yeah, this like thing that wants my money. Oh my god, what the fuck? I'm unsubscribing to DC Universe.
Well, sorry, you just got 2 different emails back to back from DC Universe?
I got 4.
What?
Yes.
That's excessive.
Technically, because one is going to my normal email, one's going to the Dr. DC podcast email.
Oh, Jesus.
2 are going, it was 2 emails for each account. Because one's for whatever reason, thanks for joining a Universe Infinite, which...
Did I do that with the Dr. DC account, maybe? That might be me.
Yeah, but there's 4 emails describing 2 that entered.
Yeah, I don't remember now.
But yeah, that's apparently happening. So not that popular. Each week we talk about the weird and wonderful world of DC while fielding questions from listeners like you.
Yeah, baby.
This week we're talking about not Black Manta.
No. Never.
The one part of that, and I don't like it.
Yeah, I hate mantas ever since what they
did
to Steve Irwin.
Yeah. Oh, do you know my do you know the Steve Irwin joke?
I don't know.
Why does Steve Irwin wear sunglasses?
Oh no,
because he likes to catch the killer rays.
Oh no! Oh no! Crikey!
Yeah, truly.
Oh,
no, we're talking about Black Manta's son.
That's right. It's May.
That's right.
And Golden Age patrons voted on it, and we're doing an episode on the son of Black Manta, which is an interesting character because there's sort of 2 parallel versions. There is one in the comics, in the mainline continuity. His name's Jackson Hyde. Mm-hmm. He was Aqualad, and then, he's the new Aquaman. And there's a sort of similar, but not technically the same one called Kaldur'ahm from the Young Justice cartoon, who started as Aqualad, is the new Aquaman. They're both the sons of Black Manta. They have slightly different histories. They have largely similar powers. But they're just kind of like weird sort of parallel versions that we're talking about. But both of them are relatively major queer characters in DC.
Love them.
The cartoon one is sort of canonically bisexual, okay. I believe, and then the current continuity of Jackson Hyde in the comics, he's out and gay. That's it.
Love it.
Yeah, baby.
Well, let's get into the questions.
Let's do it.
First, we're going over to Facebook.
Going to the face and the book. Going to the Facebook.
Comes from Ryan the Poodle.
Yeah.
Who asks, has the character had his own title/series in the comics? If not, do you think Calder/Jackson is due for, let's say, a 12-issue series? Would you like to see Jason Momoa's Aquaman have him as an Aqualad?
Okay, a few things there. So,
has he had his own title series?
Jackson has had his own series.
Okay.
It's called Aquaman the Becoming.
Nice. Becoming everywhere. Feeding them fish.
That sweater is very becoming on you. But if I was on you, I'd be coming too.
Fuck yeah.
Gulp. But that series focuses on Jackson. And it's about him kind of taking up the Aquaman mantle. And then there's the Aquaman series that is largely a Jackson book, but also has quite a bit of Arthur in it.
Sure.
But in terms of just having a book, Aquaman the Becoming is 6 issues. And that is like a Jackson Hyde series. But he's been a featured character in Teen Titans, in Aquaman, especially in the Kelly Sue DeConnick run, and a character that began in comics in Brightest Day. That version of Jackson is pretty short-lived because it's like right before the New 52 happened.
Sure.
and is slightly different. But that's not his own comic. But that's sort of where he was.
Sure.
The other parts of this. So, do I want more? He's had a series. Should he get more? Yes, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
He's the new Aquaman. Put him on the Aquaman book, and then have Arthur just kind of bomb him. Treat it like Wally and Barry, right? Where it's like, Arthur's going to show up in Justice League or in stuff like that. We know he's around or whatever, but like, let's just make Jackson the main Aquaman.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I'm right now. There's not currently an Aquaman book, so we'd need just an Aquaman book. But make Jackson the lead of that, I think, would be awesome.
Mm-hmm.
As for the movies, in general, I would love for movies to treat heroes as not just like solo entities, especially when they don't. That's not their history. It would be cool to have Jackson in as a side character. I'd love to get more of like the sidekicky kind of characters in there. The continuity of the movies, I'm not 100% sure how well that allows for that story, because Jackson's mother is meant to be from Zebel, like where Mira is from.
Yeah.
And so then you kind of have to backdate, like, so Black Manta has known about Atlantis and Zebel and stuff for 15 years.
Sure.
And, like, there's the movie continuity question of it, but that's not insurmountable. You just kind of make something new up. But it would be cool. I'd be up for that.
I think the thing that I'm challenged by is that I've never seen like a sidekick come off like cool in any of those movies.
But when have you when have you even seen it attempted?
I mean, Batman Robin.
But that's the only one.
That's what I mean.
Because all the other ones, they go, like, no, you can't do it. It's like, well, you're just kind of giving up.
Yeah.
Like, that's not really trying.
Sure, yeah.
Like, there's so little to go off in terms of whether or not it's easily done. I think you can totally do it. It's just a mentor relationship. It's family. You just take all of the stuff from kind of movies like that about like, how do you bring someone in, bring someone new, and give them like guidance, be kind of like a parental figure, kind of like a brother figure, or what, like all of those things are like built into other movies.
Yeah.
So there's no reason it can't work.
Totally.
But you're right that
it hasn't been done.
And it's been like, that's, like we're in an era where it's like, no, give them the colorful suits, like we'll make it really comic booky, but not sidekick. Let's do comic booky. It's like,
exactly.
There's still kind of that hesitance. But
absolutely. All right. Well, with that, why don't we leave Facebook and head on over to Twitter?
That's Twitter.
First question comes from Ben Grimm fan, who asks,
"It's answering time."
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Hell yeah. Which version do you prefer? I love both, but I lean towards the YJ version since he had such an amazing arc.
Did you watch Young Justice? Because that version of the character is interesting. So in Young Justice, Kaldur'ahm is like from Atlantis.
Sure.
He grew up there. He goes to like Atlantean like sorcery school. Like he's from there. And then he comes to the surface as Aquaman's sidekick. And, meets Robin, meets Wally. They form a team. All that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But his like speech, he's not... Atlanteans aren't Vulcans. Like he enjoys himself. He's got emotions. But he is a little like detached. In the way that like sometimes Martian Manhunter is kind of played like just a little removed.
Mm-hmm.
So he has like a different cadence of speaking, and he's a little more formal, and he's kind of alien because he comes from this totally different culture.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that makes for like an interesting dynamic. And he's a great character. Really, really interesting. The way he's sort of like, the burden of leadership is kind of placed on him because he's like older and more mature than some of the other young heroes.
Sure, yeah.
Even though he doesn't really want it. And then, the choices you have to make as leader, like what information goes to what people, and how do you bear responsibility when stuff goes wrong. And like he has a very interesting journey through that and ultimately becoming Aquaman.
Yeah.
So he's very fascinating. Jackson Hyde has a different sort of journey in that he has you at least get to see a lot more of the sidekick part of the journey. So a lot of that's kind of off screen with Calder because you're seeing him in the leadership position on the Titans team. Whereas Jackson, when he ends up on the Titans, Damian's in charge, and it's just him butting up against Damian being a shithead,
Sure.
like all this kind of stuff. His journey is different too because he didn't grow up in Atlantis. He grew up on land and found out later that he was
Atlantean?
half Zebelian, like he's from the sea,
Sure,
like of heritage at least. His mom hid it because she didn't want Manta to find him, and like all this kind of stuff, So he has a different relationship even to his powers. To Calder is so confident. He went to sorcery school. He knows his powers. He's Jackson is like learning. He's new. Like he's foreign in the sea in the way Arthur is foreign in the sea. So they have their relationship's different too, do I have a preference of that? I mean, we've probably seen more of Calder's story generally than we have of Jackson's, just raw amount and quality of appearances. But I think I'm tempted to prefer Jackson.
Oh, wow.
Because I like that he has like Garth, the first Aqualad in comics, comes from Atlantis. And he had his own kind of weird, like Atlanteans would persecute him because he had like purple eyes or something like that. They're very superstitious and all this kind of shit. But he was still like from the culture.
Yeah.
I like that there's more of a mirror with Jackson and Arthur in terms of their relationship to Atlantis and the ocean world. But also, it's kind of like a... Well, I don't want to make it about Arthur, but there's an interesting relationship with Arthur because he's the one that killed Black Manta's dad in this continuity.
Yeah.
He and Black Manta have this very fraught kind of start to their rivalry, and Aquaman fully, intentionally killed Manta's dad, basically.
Yeah.
He thought it was Manta, but still, like, he did it.
Yeah.
And so then to essentially raise Manta's son... There's again, I don't want to make it about Arthur, but there's like I think a more interesting dynamic in there than just you're the son of my enemy, and that's where that ends. There's a lot more I think to play with Jackson, so I think that one's my favorite.
Nice.
Yeah.
Do you want to close the window?
No, I want this. Keep it in.
The fuck is going on out there? All right, let's go to the next question from Office Thon, who asks, I know you may not be the best to answer, but would you say Jackson Hyde / Kaldur'ahm is good representation of LGBTQ+? Would you change anything to maybe make them more appealing towards the LGBTQ+ community?
No one is in a better position to answer this than Richard and I.
Let's just say the Doctor's in a very vulnerable position right now.
Oh, I don't know that that's necessary for it.
No, but it's feeling great.
Jesus. Yeah, okay. Again, you're always putting yourself like that's how that would play.
Just because one pillow says otherwise.
That pillow is right.
The one you'll be biting.
Yeah. Yeah. I think so. I mean, I don't see how it's not good. I don't see a reason to think it's not good representation. Jackson is in kind of like relatively healthy, good relationships. He's open about himself and who he is. It's part of his journey into adulthood. Is not just asserting himself as a hero and these other kind of things, but also asserting his sexual identity and stuff like that. That's all part of it. I think that all really works. And Jackson has had relationships or whatever on land and with another Zebelian, I think, or with an Atlantean or whatever.
Okay.
So, there's nothing in there where it's like, not that, or certainly doesn't jump out to me as like problematic. Like, there's no like Will and Grace bad gay stereotype shit in Jackson's story from what I've seen. Same with Calder. Like, they're both Very well done. I mean, if anything, the relationships are probably underexplored. We're doing a lot more superheroing, and especially compared to a book like the current Tim Drake book, or like the John Kent book before Adventures of Superman. The ones that we were talking about last week, there's a lot more focus on like John and Jay or Tim and Bernard in those books than there are on Jackson and his relationships in those comics. But yeah, I mean, I have no reason to there's no weird, problematic, like obvious tropey stuff, at least not that I've seen.
Mm-hmm. That's good.
Yeah. How to make it better? I mean, I definitely would know how to do that.
Yeah, make it like pink and
Jesus. Oh God. Make it more like Will and Grace.
Yeah. Make them fuck more. That's how you make it anything more.
To be like a gross person, but like really
progressive,
really encouraging.
Yeah. You make him fucking slob all over his knob.
Yeah. Jesus Christ.
Fucking nice.
Just to be an absolute dirtbag, but an ally.
Yeah. Do it my favorite style, in the butt.
You know what? There's a lot of nice romance in these books, but where's the dick play?
Yeah. Yeah. That guy is sucking that other guy, not even touching his nuts. It's called foreplay.
Read about it. Progressive dirtbag. It's a really good idea. That's very funny.
Not one fucking facial, nothing.
Hey, I like Power Girl for the tits. I like Aquaman for the dicks. What?
Yeah. Yeah, get that fucking bulge.
Let's get the people
bigger
in the door. Let's show some fucking peen.
Also, different colors of peen. This is fucking 2023.
Yeah, what you think we can? Oh God, very funny.
All right, next question comes from Nightwing Enjoyer.
All right, he's fine.
Yeah, he's
yeah,
right. Yeah. That's what I think.
I'm not crazy about him.
Yeah.
I am dead ass.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Oh, it's almost as good as my chicks. I've watched all of Young Justice, but haven't really read any of Jackson Hyde's stuff. What's the difference between these characters?
So, the primary difference is the one that I just described. It's a bit their connection to their heritage. So in both cases, they are the son of Black Manta and an Atlantean.
Sure.
In Young Justice, it's like an actual Atlantean. I can't remember her name. And then Calder grows up in Atlantis with her. In the comics, his mother, who I believe she changes her name to like Lucia or something like that.
Lucia?
She's from Zebel, which is the realm that Mira is from. That was sort of in its own, almost like dimension a little bit.
Yeah.
And Manta had gone there like years earlier in search of like a specific treasure, and she had helped him. And
is that changed in like Jeff Johns' version of it, where there's the 7 Seas and she's from a different?
That is except that when that was happening, Jackson's not really around.
Oh, okay.
Because we're in the New 52. We're really
did that
just
change the continuity long term
to what we're talking about
now.
So when he shows up in Rebirth and we actually learn about this version of Jackson, that's what it is. She takes him and they live in like Nevada or something like that, to be like far away from water.
Sure.
She doesn't want Manta to find him. She doesn't want him using his powers. When he comes out as gay, she has like she's like, I don't know. But not because she's against.
She's like, you could suck all the dick you want, but I don't know fucking gills in this house.
Well, it's kind of.
Wow.
Because it's more like she's worried that being gay will call more attention to him and make it easier for Manta to find
You know
him.
what the older generations are like. They're used to regular air breathing people.
Yeah. They're not gilled to the brim.
Yeah. First you start with breathing water, then what? Jello,
Jesus.
milk.
So there's kind of like that. That's I'd say the biggest difference,
Sure.
which means that Calder like has the cultural upbringing of Atlantis. He understands its ways. He has a better handle on his powers when he starts superheroing. Jackson is kind of learning as he goes and things like that. That's the biggest difference. But their powers are more or less the same. So a degree of hydrokinesis, kind of like what Mira can do, but not as powerful as Mira. In both cases, he uses these things called water bearers, these sort of devices that help him make hard water constructs and things like that. He has a sort of bioelectric thing he could do, kind of like an electric eel. So he can like make electrical charges and stuff like that. Now in the show, that's more like sorcery. It's like more magic based, and in the comics, it's a little more science-y, but more or less like power-wise, being, Aqualad, graduating, being, Aquaman, that stuff's mostly the same. So the biggest difference is that kind of cultural upbringing piece. Nice. Now, to your point about Jeff Johns and continuity, what I just described as comic book continuity of Jackson Hyde is the continuity.
Okay.
But for his first comics appearance.
Oh.
Which is in Brightest Day, a series that came out in the months leading up to the New 52.
Oh, wow.
The first version of Jackson shows up there. And in that one, he's not gay. And he has adoptive parents.
Oh.
He's not living with his mother, who's hiding his heritage or things like on the run from Manta. Mira had brought him to this like human couple to raise in the desert or whatever.
With a horse with no name.
And him, when exposed to water, he would go through like an actual physical change. He'd get like webbed hands and feet. His gills would show up. He would actually like transform a bit when exposed to water. So like just a little bit kind of different there. But that is no longer the case. Now it's that like he and his actual mother, like she left Zebel, raised him on land to hide him from Manta. So relatively small changes, but like that was like, it was like true for like 3 issues, and then the New 52 happened, and then we didn't see Jackson again until 2016. So for like 5 years there was no Jackson. He was introduced and then he was gone.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
All right, next question comes from our favorite religious representative.
Okay. Chris Chan. Jesus. I mean, whatever. Do I have to do fucking everything?
Everything?
Yeah, you heard me.
All right. I'll make sure you do everything. Excuse me?
Oh, I was pointing to where I thought the coupons were, but they're not there.
They're not there. Nope. You don't know where they are. I don't know. I'll never tell. No, they're not anywhere over here. All right. Yeah, that's where they are. They're right there.
Oh. No, they're not in that thing?
No.
Keep this all in.
Hey, I just met you. And this is
gravy.
Awesome.
Oh.
So here's my number. Kaldur'ahm.
Whoa. Yeah, baby. Ooh, I like it. I like it. Yeah, baby.
Add it to the playlist.
Nice.
All right. Chris Chan asks, how come he's not integrated into the comic book universe as well as other characters who began life in another medium? He's certainly not used as much as a Harley Quinn or Renee Montoya.
I mean, true, but also Renee and Harley have had 30 years.
Sure.
You know? Also, Harley is like such a
fucking selling machine.
You know what I mean? Like, you can't even really put Renee and Harley in the same conversation.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Like, But I wouldn't say Jackson's not, like basically since 2016 when they reintroduced him, he consistently showed up in Teen Titans and that. He's been in multiple Aquaman versions of whatever the Aquaman book was, right?
What about the TV shows?
Well, there's not, Calder is still in Young Justice.
Okay.
But that's about like
the only representation of an Aqualad besides the Titans show that we had, which was not.
That's Garth. That's meant to
Garth,
be the other one. Yeah. But like, I wouldn't say he's not. I mean, he showed up at Dark Crisis. He's there. He had a whole Future State series that was like pretty cool to see like the future version of him.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, he was in Kelly Sue DeConnick's Aquaman. He had his own book, Aquaman: The Becoming. He was in Aquaman. Like, I think that's. Like, what are Renee's big books? Let's really think about. It's not that she didn't show up in other stuff, but what are Renee's like biggest appearances? When she was making them, it's Gotham Central, obviously. 52 Detective Comics with Batwoman are kind of like the biggest ones.
Yeah,
and then some event appearances and stuff.
Sure,
but that means that starts in 2005, which is already like 13 years after she appeared in the animated series. And again, she had been around. I'm not saying that's the first time she appeared, but like it took her a while to get traction. She wasn't like an immediate, like, you know what I mean? Like, I actually think this Aqualad has stuck around so well that it's like we have to remind ourselves that Tempest is even out there. Garth, the former Aqualad.
Oh, wow.
Like, when he shows up in a Titans book, you go like, oh, yeah. He's not in, or he's barely been in, the last two versions of a Titans book. He's certainly not, in a big way in the new one. Like, he barely shows up. He shows up for a bit in Teen Titans just to go like, yes, you could be Aqualad. He's like, bye! And he like disappears. Like, I'd say Jackson, certainly in the context of current readership, has like way more footprint than Garth does. Garth obviously has a lot of comic book appearances because he was all through the 60s and 70s and stuff like that. But like, I actually think Jackson's got sort of decent traction. I wouldn't say he doesn't,
Fair. All right. Well, with that, let's leave Twitter and head over to Instagram.
Now we're going to Instagram, take some questions and answer them.
All right. First question from Instagram comes to us from
your mom,
Keegan Steedman.
Sure.
Your mom, Keegan Steedman.
Yeah.
Who asks, what would your dream direction for this character be? Where would you like to see him in the next 10 to 15 years? It's like an interview question.
Yeah, where do you see himself?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Future State gave us a sort of interesting version where he, as Aquaman, is now mentoring and training Andy, Princess Andrina Curry, like Arthur and Mira's daughter. I liked that in Future State. I thought it was a really cool dynamic. I thought it was like they had a really kind of good relationship, like a cool sort of brother-sister kind of mentoring thing there. That was really cool. I would love to see more of that. I obviously want him to be Aquaman. Like, let's get him an Aquaman book. That's like right on the top of the list. Just let him be Aquaman.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I'd like to keep him out of the question of governance of Atlantis. Arthur has been king and then not been king. Orm's been king and then not been king. Mira was queen and then she dissolved the monarchy, and Atlantis is kind of in this, we haven't really checked in on it, but it's a sort of like we're trying democracy?
Sure, yeah.
Kind of thing. But no matter what their system is, I'd like to keep Jackson out of it. There should be no version where it's even a question that he becomes the leader. He shouldn't be.
Yeah.
He's Aquaman. It should, for the first time, really, maybe since the Golden Age when it wasn't really defined, Aquaman should be a wholly separate idea from the idea of Atlantis.
Oh, okay.
You know, like his Aquaman should just be like, those are his powers and he comes from that place, but that's it.
Yeah.
Because Arthur's thing was always about, even when he wasn't the king, it was always about that push-pull of like, he's kind of the de facto representative of Atlantis. It would be cool to see Aquaman as a mantle, like, actually be removed from that. So when Jackson does something, it's not an immediate, like, war with Atlantis kind of thing. He just gets to be a hero with water powers. You know what I mean? Like, that's kind of what I would want to see for, is really separate those ideas out. Because you still have, you know, you could use characters like Tula, Garth, Dolphin, Arthur, Mira, etc. to explore the politics of Atlantis, or the, you know, like all those kind of things if you want to explore them. But Jackson should, I think, be like a little bit free of that. I think that would be nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, next question comes from Ben Forrest Stewart.
Lock the door if you're underwater.
Whoa!
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Atlantis.
That's correct. Who asks...
smells fishy down here. Is that squid gash I smell?
Oh, the crossover has happened.
Yeah, that's from the double last week, baby.
Yeah.
It's so vile.
What am I better? Yeah.
Come over here, squid dash.
That's like a thing that I feel like the real like actor would say. Like,
yeah, that's some kind of slur we haven't heard before.
Yeah.
Oh, he's a real squid gash, if you know what I mean.
I don't. Ben asks, which of his names do you prefer, and why do they give a different name for the show than the books?
So, there's kind of an interesting history to this.
Okay.
So, the show debuted in 2011, I think.
Okay.
And Kaldur'ahm is obviously the version on that show. The character and the concept of this character, whether he's named Kaldur'ahm or Jackson Hyde, the character was created by the creators of the show.
Oh, okay.
Because it's animation and it takes a long time to make animation.
Sure.
But like 2 months before the show comes out,
oh wow,
John's introduced a version of this character, like not in a like a shifty way, but in a like, this character's going to be big. He's coming out in the thing. Let's introduce his comic version. Some changes had to be made to his backstory because, like I described, like it's the setup is just different on the show than it is in the mainline continuity of comics. But what ends up happening is like Jackson Hyde technically debuts 2 months in the comics before the show comes out. But the show is the actual like genesis of the character. But because of the idea of like Jackson in the comics, he's being raised by adoptive parents, he doesn't know who he is or whatever, he has a human name, right? Jackson Hyde. But Calder grows up in Atlantis. There's no reason for him to have like Greg Atlantis.
Sure.
Like he can't have like a normal, you know what I mean? So his name is Kaldur'ahm, which is itself a play on like an old 70s side character from Aquaman, which was Kaldur'ahm. He was Kaldur'ahm in the comics was a henchman of Black Manta's who defects. He was sort of experimented on, and he had gills. He could survive underwater. He was a follower of Black Manta's, and then he defects, and he ends up living in Atlantis and stuff like that.
Oh, wow.
So calling this character Kaldur'ahm was sort of like an homage to Kaldur'ahm. Yeah. So that there's this sort of weird timeline of the character development there. But that's essentially why they've got different names and why they're largely the same but slightly, different. Yeah. Is that, okay. They were making a thing for the show and they were like, that's great, we should bring that into the comics, but it's never a one-to-one transfer. The comics have 80 years of history and continuity you got to contend with, so you change aspects, and then when you change that aspect, you go like, well, I guess he's got to have like a Earth name, you know what I mean? Like that kind of thing. So that's where that comes from.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, let's leave Instagram and head on over to Reddit.
Where everyone's nice and no one's ever mean.
First question comes from Just Takes One Bad Day 725.
Yeah, that's really cool. Yeah.
who asks, create a character to be Jackson Hyde's arch nemesis.
Ooh.
For me, since Jackson is Black Manta's son, but a good guy, let's have Black Manta bring Aqua Baby back from the dead and raise him Red Hood style into hating Aqualad, the same way Red Hood hated Tim Drake when he came back.
Interesting pitch. I've got kind of two major problems with it.
Okay.
Problem number one is that feels like that would be an Arthur villain. Your long lost son you thought was dead was raised by your enemy. You know, a reverse Jackson, basically. Which is when you're not sorry and you're not real. That's a reverse. Well, that's a reverse Miss Jackson. Yeah.
I am not real.
I'm not sorry, Miss Jackson. What? I am not real.
Always meant to make your Aqua lad cry.
So that's problem number one that I've got with it. Problem number two is that Manta... Listen, Manta has fought Jackson Hyde.
Yeah.
He's been cruel to him. Manta is not a good guy.
Yeah.
But would Manta go out of his way to tell other people to hate his son? No. That's not really in character for Manta.
Yeah.
Who's had this kind of his own sort of interesting parallel journey as Jackson has grown in the comics.
Yeah.
You know, Manta is still a threat. Manta is a general adversary of Aquaman, regardless of who it is.
Yeah.
But it's different. You know, there's a kind of, just like, it's sort of like how even the relationship between Batman and Ra's al Ghul has changed since Damian. It's not that they're not adversaries or that they don't fight or that there's not whatever, but like even having Damian in the mix, like your son, my grandson, has changed the nature of their thing. And that's what I'm getting at with Manta. I don't think Manta would do this. So those are my two kind of big problems with that pitch. That's why it's so fucking stupid. But all that in mind, if you had to kind of pitch a villain, an archenemy, you know, if Arthur has Black Manta, what do you think would be like an interesting archenemy kind of character for Jackson?
I mean, I think if I was gonna, it would have to be like another person unrelated to Black Manta, and it would have, but I think have to be they would have to work with Black Manta to be able to achieve a goal. I think that feels like the only way. But it's sort of like, oh well, it's like you also hate him. Let's like work together. Like you hate this guy, I hate this guy.
Yeah. Like Devil Ray or something.
Yeah. I think that's the only real way for me. I think like. Maybe it's like a fisherman's son whose like job was taken away because of him or something, and he saw Aqualad do it, and he's like I think that's like the only real way I can imagine a situation like that happening, because I don't see Black Manta going out for help to get somebody to work with him. Like I think it's a situation where it's like, oh, we've got common goals. Like that's the way Black Manta typically works.
Yeah, interesting.
Or I don't know, Mr. Freeze. That's what I always say.
Yeah, no, there you go. That's the one. Dating the Street and Martian Manhunter. There's a part of me that wants to aim for something like really different.
Sure. Like space?
Like space, or like gods.
Oh, whoa!
You know, like maybe space more than gods, though. You know, we've explored the idea of like other oceans and other kind of like galactic water beings and deities and that in Drowned Earth and in kind of stories like that.
Yeah,
there was sort of an element of that to the Future State story. That featured Jackson and Andy. So maybe like some kind of like an alien, you know, I don't know if they need necessarily water powers or But some kind of like a bigger
Sure.
threat, I think, is something I'd find interesting. And maybe in the way of like Jackson, the reason that Jackson is well suited to the task is his ability to like navigate the foreign and stuff like that. Like it has to play into something in his character, right? That makes him like well suited to it. But maybe something like that, you know? I mean, maybe it's just because I like that future state story. The idea of kind of like, you know, like when Swamp Thing went to space, it was like, well, there's plants in space.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Like, it's kind of like, there's oceans in space.
Yeah.
You know? Like, I don't know. I kind of dig that a little bit. I'm not sure why, but something like that maybe.
That's cool. Maybe for whatever reason, like he goes to another planet and like causes some fucking shit, and then the like water people from that planet end up fucking coming back.
It could be. Something. I don't know, or like even within our solar system or something. Are there aliens on Neptune that we, you know, like that kind of shit? Like that's kind of.
All right. Let's go to the next question from Nameless Nerd Talk.
By the way, before people fucking come for me, I know Neptune is a gas giant. I'm just saying its comics make it water like it was in DC 1 billion or whatever.
I feel like you're defensive and...
Yeah, why would I get like that? We fucking trade these rat fucks too well.
Look, these pond scum will only come if I tell them to.
Yeah. Ooh.
That's right.
People pay a lot of money for that.
Hashtag ruined.
Yeah, hashtag ruined.
Nameless Nerd Talk asks, if you could change one thing about Jackson Hyde's character / origin story to make the character more interesting / mainstream, what would you change?
I don't think he's not interesting
or mainstream
or mainstream. But if I had to pick a thing, I might bring back the idea that like when exposed to water, he has more of a physical transformation. Just make him slightly less human. I don't know that I like 100% like, you know, like Arthur's half human. He looks whatever.
Yeah.
But like, that's an element I kind of liked. You exposed to water and just his hands web a bit.
Yeah.
Start seeing it. You know, like I just kind of dig
that concept.
Even Calder in the show, like you can always see his gills.
Yeah.
Which is just a little different, you know, like, I don't know, just something like that. I'd kind of, that's not a big change, but it'd be like a little bit of like a visual thing. It kind of gives like a little bit of, it's like, it would be almost like his version of like taking off the glasses, right? Like, even if he's not in his super suit, it's like, there's like water out and then it's like, you see the gills and be like, it's time.
Sure.
Like just, it's cool to just have like a, he is from somewhere else.
Yeah.
And Zebel is a different place, even from Atlantis. It was in its own weird dimension. He has powers that Aquaman doesn't have because he has that kind of like hydrokinetics and the bioelectricity thing. Like to make him more of like a sea being. And then you build into the story that like for so long, he's known he's been different. He's been stuck on land. His mom didn't want him to stand out, but you know, like you almost build in like a kind of like, this might have even been part of it in the Brightest Day one, but like you almost build in like a fear of water.
Oh yeah.
Don't change.
Yeah.
You know? So then part of his journey, I mean, we're well past that now, but part of his journey is overcoming all of those insecurities himself. In order to embrace being Aqualad or Aquaman, he's had to like overcome this kind of, you know.
Is there anything you would change about his origin?
No, actually, I mean, what? It's largely boring that Manta is like, I'm looking for a treasure. I'll sleep with whoever you are.
Sure.
Like that's pretty boring, I think. But that's not really what's important about it. What's important about it is that it happened, and Jackson deals with being the son of Black Manta.
Sure.
So I don't know that I'd actually change all that much about that. Yeah.
All right, next question from Go Speed Racer Go 0.
Go Speed Racer Go!
Who asks, what different team would Jackson Hyde and Calder join? I feel I could see Calder join the Outlaws or Outsiders.
The Outlaws is interesting. So the Outlaws was like Red Hood, Starfire, and Arsenal, at least for a bit. And then it was Red Hood, Bizarro, and Artemis for a bit. So they were kind of, like you're like edgy, your dark trinity kind of thing. You know what I mean? Like the gruff versions of the characters you like. I think Calder is actually a little too uptight for that shit.
Sure.
Especially the way he's portrayed on the show. Like, listen, Calder had to go undercover, with Black Manta for a whole season. It looked like he went bad or whatever. But, like, Calder's personality, for the most part, going undercover aside, is a little bit more like there are rules and processes. I don't think he jives with the Outlaws necessarily.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's a cool case to make that Jackson would be interesting to add to like the Terrifics.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. Okay.
So the Terrifics are Mr. Terrific, Phantom Girl, Plastic Man, and Metamorpho.
Yeah.
And they were going on like space and dimensional and sci-fi adventures.
Sure.
I actually think
that's fun.
There's some place for Jackson in there.
I like that.
I think that would be interesting.
That's cool. I like that.
For Calder, maybe the Outsiders, like Batman's Outsiders. I mean, the show does its own kind of version of things, so But if we were imagining a more kind of true to the comics version of the Outsiders or something like that, that might be kind of interesting.
Yeah, I like that.
Something like that maybe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. Next question comes from. Well, we're leaving Reddit and we're heading over to the Doxcord.
Oh shit! Fuck. Say my doc, say my scored when no one is a doc scored. Say you're scoreding doc scored. I'll be doxing scored.
I like that you just take the tonality of the
Headgum
podcast.
It's just so funny to me. I just love just bad and overemphasized.
Yes.
Say my scored. Say my scored.
All right. First question comes from Witch Devil Sorcerer, who asks, "What was the character's history before Young Justice?"
Right. So very brief. It's basically just like the few issues I was telling you about in Brightest Day.
Yeah.
We meet Jackson. Manta finds him. Arthur comes and saves him. We learn that Mira had brought Jackson to the service and given him to this couple to look after.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's all tied to Aquaman's journey and the stuff with the entity and that in Brightest Day, but it's like a handful of issues. And then the new 52 hits, and that's it. Like the show came out like a couple of months after Jackson debuted in the comics, so really, like, there's almost no history of the character before the show, which is neat because it means that the show kind of queues up some stuff for the comic. Like they sort of develop in parallel. I can't remember which one did it first, but like I'm pretty sure Calder on the show became Aquaman before Jackson in the comics became Aquaman.
Sure.
But it's possibly the other way around, where Jackson in the comics came out as gay first and then Calder in the show like followed suit. So there's kind of like they really are just like parallel versions of the same character. They're developing side by side as they go, which is kind of rare and interesting too. Yeah.
All right. Next question comes from Lilith, who asks, Kaldur'ahm showed up as a prominent character in Brightest Day, but outside of a few cameos, he didn't appear again until the second arc of Rebirth era Teen Titans. Mm-hmm. Why do you think he was dropped post-Flashpoint? On the flip side, why did they decide to bring him back 6 years later?
Well, I mean, the bringing him back is just very simply, that was the mandate of the Rebirth era.
Sure.
Was like, let's connect the threads again. We've done the new 52, but we've got to bring back more of the legacy that we were building up for the whole history of DC up until the new 52.
Sure. Yeah.
So the mandate of Rebirth is sort of the thing. It's the reason you get Wally back. It's the reason you get, so many characters come back. The new 52's thing, even though Johns was like basically setting up a kind of revival of Aquaman through Brightest Day.
Yeah.
The New 52's thing was like jumping on points for new readers. You know, let's trim it down, all this kind of stuff. Garth wasn't even really in there. The focus was on Arthur and to a lesser extent Mira, and we didn't see Tula, we didn't see Garth. You know, those characters weren't really there. I don't think we see Garth in a comic post New 52 until Titan's Hunt, which is 4 years in, 5 years in, maybe Rebirth, something like that. Like,
Oh, wow.
and that's meant to have been the first sidekick, you know? So it's just part of, it was just the editorial mandates. Like, and it's not, what I'm getting at is, it wasn't just Jackson.
Sure, yeah.
So many characters. Connor Hawk, Donna Troy. But the Rebirth thing, it was the reverse editorial mandate. It's like where we were stripping stuff down and trying to keep it simple or go back to the quote unquote OGs or whatever.
Yeah.
Now it's like, let's reconnect these threads. There's characters people liked. They liked seeing mantles being passed on. They liked seeing new characters come up and be involved. And so that was part of the mandate there. So, yeah, I mean, I don't think it's anything more insidious than that. It's the idea of Jackson just doesn't jive with the New 52.
Sure.
There's weirdness in the New 52 when you look at Batman or you look at Green Lantern, where it's like, so it is kind of continuing the continuity, but now we've squished the timeline and it doesn't make sense. But for other things like Aquaman, they were basically just being like, forget all that, focus in, until they were like, no, people actually want the other stuff. You know,
is that really what Rebirth really was? Was it just like, actually, never mind?
I mean, more or less.
So
Rebirth introduced the idea that Dr. Manhattan had been fucking with things, that you could blame him for the New 52. And it was really like, hey, continuity is going to start like sorting itself out. So like, you know, it was like, essentially, it was all that shit. Yeah. It was like, we're going to keep the stuff that fucking worked from the New 52. Court of Owls, you know, the Red, the stuff from Animal Man. Like, there's good stuff in the New 52. We're not throwing the baby out with the bathwater, but now we're going to start like feeding the legacy continuity back in again.
So stupid.
And that kept going kind of through Rebirth. Doomsday Clock feeds into it. Metal feeds into it.
Sure.
Death Metal feeds into it. And now we're kind of at whatever's happening in comics now treats it all like it happened.
Sure.
As if there wasn't a bit where we had to pretend it didn't.
Sure.
So,
all right. Next question comes from We've Only Just done again, who asks, what are the limits to his ability to make water constructs? Can he go full GL?
I mean, he's pretty powerful. He's made like giant kind of like, what do you call them? You know, like water tornado kind of like
sure.
He's made platforms. In the show, Calder makes like hammers and blades a lot out of
like hard water constructs? Like, okay.
Yeah, so it's taking water, using hydrokinesis, using those water bearers to turn them into like hard stuff, the way that a Green Lantern does that with light.
Sure, yeah.
So he's made swords, hammers, ropes, whips.
Sure, yeah.
Maces.
Yeah.
All sorts of stuff. He's made nets. He's made just like general like moving of water. Like he can use the water bears and just like make a wave, and he's done shit like that.
Was
too.
Aquaman's water hand like that or no?
His hand was called a water bear. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm so fucking proud of you. Yes, I am rock hard right now. No.
I'm proof that if you listen to this podcast from the beginning, you might actually learn
you'll learn exactly 3 things.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, Aquaman's hand was called the water bearer, and so that's where the idea of this device comes from. Yeah, I mean, he's pretty powerful. I mean, Calder on the show, again, there's like more of like a magic sorcery thing and a little less of like that he has some sort of like Zebellian meta power.
Yeah.
The comics are a bit different in terms of like where the power comes from. So because it's more of a sorcery thing on the show, technically, like as with anything sorcery, if you're open to it, if you're a good conduit for magic, you know, and you're willing to pay whatever the price is, you can do a lot.
Hell yeah.
You know? I would say that Jackson is like definitively less powerful hydrokinetic than Mira. That's not a hot take. But I mean, very, very strong, very competent, you know?
Yeah.
But like, I would say like a solid tier or two down from Mira.
Sure.
Mira's kind of in her own category. Like Mira has like literally like moved the ocean out of her way.
Yeah.
Like she can like, I don't think Jackson could do that.
Sure.
Yeah.
All right, last question from Butt Fart Butt, who asks, I realize that Jackson and Calder are the same character in different media formats.
Hell yeah.
But given...
Hell yeah.
I was like,
woo!
I don't know if that really gone...
I don't know, man.
But given the nature of the DC multiverse, are they technically from different Earths? Is there a chance they could meet each other one day?
They are technically from different Earths. Very briefly, before kind of the new sort of Earth designations were set post Flashpoint, Young Justice was considered to be Earth 16.
Okay.
But that's pre-Flashpoint.
So where is it now?
I can't remember if it has an actual designation in that Dark Crisis Big Bang, which is the most up-to-date list of Earth and designations. But post Flashpoint, Earth 16 changed. It was built on the nugget of an idea, but Morrison went in a very different direction. Earth 16 post Flashpoint was a world where the first generation of heroes did the job. They mostly stopped crime. They beat the villains. And so their kids and their successors have nothing to fight. And so they become these like vapid celebrities. Like Earth 16 is like a world of people who are only famous for being famous. Like kind of like the world we live in.
Sure.
But it's like, it would be like, what's her name? Megamorpho. It's like the daughter of Rex Mason and Sapphire Stagg. And she's like a celebrity. She goes to the Met Gala and she like, but just for, you know, shit like that. So that was Earth 16 post Flashpoint. Young Justice as a designation kind of disappeared. It might have one in that Big Bang list, but I can't remember. But it's not Earth 16. It's somewhere else. Might just have to give it a new number now. But there's infinite Earths out there again, so whether it has a technical designation or not, yes, they are different Earths. They could absolutely meet. It's out there. It's possible. John Kent just met Injustice Superman. Nothing's off the table. These worlds can collide. It could totally happen.
This is what it sounds like.
When doves cry. Boop, 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 boop.
When would they could they date?
This is the weird like Loki Sylvie thing. I mean, they're half brothers. Leave the dimensions out of it. They're half brothers because their mothers are different.
Yeah.
Like they don't have the same maternal lineage.
Sure, yeah.
But they're both Manta's kids. I think we got to treat...
They're stuck in Atlantis,
we got to treat dimensional variance as incest, I think. I think we have to. Unless there's a version of me out there that's smoking hot.
Then never mind.
Then I disagree with what I said. But otherwise, in every other application.
Yeah, no, of course. Yeah. All right, well, that was the last question.
Yeah, cool note to end on.
Yeah, hell yeah. There was I was watching that show, The Meltdown.
Oh, sure.
And he talks about Kumail talked about if he seduce, he would definitely know how to seduce a young version of himself. And he's like, it's not pedophilia. At worst, it's statutory masturbation.
Oh, good lord. Statutory. Oh, God. That's such an insane joke.
I know.
Good lord.
Well, we'd love to hear from you, residents. Maybe send a question for the last week of May.
Of May? Because there was a sort of bonus week that I kind of forgot about. I'm just going to go to the next thing on the Patreon poll.
Which was?
So next week, send your questions about Dreamer.
Hey.
About Nian Nal, the character that started on Supergirl, is now continuity in the comics. And let's open it up to, you could also send questions about her great descendant, Dream Girl from the Legion of Superheroes. So you could send questions about Dreamer, about Naltorians, about Dream Girl, about people who are Oniro kinetic, or like Oniromancers, people who can control dreams.
Oh, so you may say she's a dreamer, but she's not the only one.
Fuck you. That was great.
Fuck yeah.
Hell yeah.
Well, if you want to send questions,
imagine there's a segue.
Whoa. It's easy if you try.
Oh. No. Shit. Fuck. Damn it.
No. Well, you can send those questions to our Facebook.
Dr. DC Podcast.
Our Twitter.
At Dr. DC.
No. Our Instagram.
Dr. DC Podcast.
Our email.
DrDCPodcast@gmail.com.
Our Reddit.
r/Dr_DC.
The doc phone is always open.
208-917-3238.
208-917-DCEU.
If you're nasty.
That's correct. Why don't you follow us on TikTok?
At Dr. DC.
I stumble on it every week because I'm like, why would you?
Lurk alongside us.
Yeah, that's right. If you want some sweet...
listen, if you want some like recos. Just
yeah. If you want to know like what like aggressive teacher does next.
Yeah, if you want to see someone dressed like Elastigirl holding a phone with her feet.
Yeah, don't know how I felt about that. Go to our website,
drdcpodcast.com or .ca.
give us a 5-star review, much like we'd give that Elastigirl.
Easy.
Yeah.
Easy.
Or just the 1-star.
Easy. Easy.
The Browns.
This is an insane segue, but I'm going to build off of this. You just said brown star. That made me think of chocolate starfish and the hot dog flavored water.
Weird.
It made me think of video I saw on TikTok of a guy who cooks boils hot dogs and then pours the water into his parents' Keurig. So they go to make coffee and it's like hot dog water.
That's disgusting.
So funny.
Is it good?
No.
Okay.
But it's really funny.
I mean, it's very funny, but like, oof.
Yeah, gross.
I don't love that. I wonder if you could do that into like a humidifier.
Oh, yeah. Have you not seen the ones where like the dude like farts into his grandma's like breathing apparatus?
No. That's vile.
It's so bad.
Jesus Christ. Why don't you subscribe to our Patreon for more conversations like this?
Patreon.com/DrDC. There's a $1, $5, $7 level. They all give you access to the Discord, our awesome community Discord server. At the $5 level, you get our weekly bonus episode, the Double Dose. At the highest level, you get theme polls, extra bonus content. There'll be, in the next couple of weeks, a Fast X episode of Toretto Talks coming out.
Holy shit.
Man, I saw it this weekend.
Woo!
You made one mistake. You didn't take my car.
Holy shit.
Fuck yeah.
Well, that's how you get access to the Discord. But if you want access to the Piss Scord, you better subscribe to our other podcast.
Yeah, I don't know, man. Ghostfacer is a Supernatural rewatch. We're going through every single episode of the CW Supernatural. We are half-ish way through season 7 right now. We talk about real world monster lore, behind the scenes stuff about the show.
Mm-hmm.
It's a grand old time. We
right.
talked about pissing.
Yeah, and the
what it's like to piss hard.
Yeah, piss hard, hurry hard,
yeah, hard, piss hard.
That's it for this week. Ciao, ciao.
No adios below us.
I just met you, and this is awesome. Here's my number. Call me Kaldur'ahm.
So all adios then.
All the superheroes, they always fight for what is right. Live with danger and adventure, they are men of might.
This was a Brain Freeze podcast.